Well, apparently we are now live. Mr. JR, and Not Legal Advice with a unexpected live stream here on Tuesday afternoon on the East Coast and lunchtime on the West Coast. And
That's right.
Yeah. And before I throw it over to JR, we're going to talk a little bit about short reports and kind of how they might influence things. But of course,
Right.
before we start, an atom lost an electron. It really should keep an eye on them. Anyway,
I want to point out that your jokes are much funnier at 2:45 on a Tuesday than they are at 6:30 on a Sunday night. So
I'm not exactly sure if that's true. Not exactly sure if that's true, but so we're obviously here talking about Fingermotion in the big picture. And in the littler picture, we're going to talk about short reports and our experience and kind of, we saw this about an hour ago. So this is our take on this stuff. So, and the way I was thinking about it. So this would be like if I was in court and somebody threw something at me and I had to kind of figure out something really quick. So this is kind of our initial analysis, not really knowing a lot,
right,
but kind of throwing it out. And I think we have some information that might be interesting to people. And before I kind of blab, I'm going to throw it to JR to kind of give us a little overview.
Yeah, so a couple things. Obviously, it just came out. I have not had the opportunity to read it yet because you'll notice I'm in a collared shirt and no hat today. I was on a meeting with a congressman. Won't say who, but it was in regards to MMTLP. So those MMTLP folks listening, we are still moving things forward. Just a little bit of background, kind of the reason why Richard and I wanted to go live on such short notice is because we actually discussed this on Sunday night, and we had been discussing it back and forth all day Saturday and a little bit Monday morning and in Monday afternoon. And what we're getting at is we weren't really talking about a short report coming out like the one that Richard's going to talk about here in a little bit. We were 110% certain that we were going to see at least one, if not multiple hit pieces leading into Monday evening and sometime today. This what happened today was obviously clearly unexpected. I don't want anybody to think that we were predicting anything. We were having a conversation about this because, as Ham said today on the call, this is the playbook. We've seen it time and time again. This one was a little different, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. But obviously, given the share price today, this one hit pretty hard. So, Richard, I think go ahead and take it away, and then I'll pepper you with questions because obviously I haven't read it yet. So go for it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is JR and I, so we've been talking about it literally for a couple of weeks because we just had this feeling that it made sense when people get desperate that they'd start throwing crap out. And it was more literally, we had the discussion was we would be surprised. We'd be surprised if one didn't come out. So we were surprised. And it's interesting to me, it didn't come out yesterday. So these guys took a risk because if theoretically it could have run yesterday before they put out the report. And maybe they have some connection to monitor the volume or the price action. And maybe they didn't file it yesterday because they didn't think they had to file it yesterday. Or maybe they just risked it. But it's interesting, the timing. So I've looked at it, and I'm going to address it in a little bit and address a prior experience I had and how these things work. And I think, by the way, that most of these short reports are nonsense. They're obviously put out by shorts who have an interest in the stock price going down. They usually disclose that, but they make up grounds for justifying their position. But it's always in their financial interest that the stock price go down. So in looking at it in terms of objectivity, there is none because they are representing the other side. Now so that's one thing. Two, the way these work, besides the fact that what happens is obviously people start discussing it and it hits the marketplace, but there's computers and algorithms that look for words. And so when a report is put out like this, it literally will scour the internet, and there'll be algorithms that'll be looking for words. And when they see the words, they will sell. And that's why, if you notice today, by the way, and I don't know this, by the way, to be a fact, but I had a prior experience and I looked at this a little bit, and it was the case. And I'm sure the reason why volume is so high today, in part, is because that's algorithmic trading arising out of this short report. It's
Right.
not anybody looking at it and determining that it's accurate. It is a computer picking out words. And the generators of the report know that and structure the reports as such. My prior experience with short reports in particular, was with a biotech called Cassava Sciences. Cassava Sciences is a company that is working on a cure for Alzheimer's. So there's a lot of companies that are in that marketplace because there's a lot of money to be made in that marketplace. So there's big pharmaceutical companies that are also looking for solutions to Alzheimer's. And as a matter of fact, one drug was approved, I think Biogen, and I don't remember, it was Merck, but it was a huge pharmaceutical company. So there's concern that perhaps for monetary reasons that somebody might have an interest to make the life of small bio as difficult as possible. And when there may be milestone events or need for capital, there may be reports that come out that question certain aspects of their practices. And in Cassava Science, it happened on multiple occasions. And every time it happened, the stock got smacked down,
Right.
and it made it difficult for that company to raise capital. That's ultimately the issue. And I, at one point in time, I had enough, so I complained. And I'm gonna suggest to everybody out there to do this. And the reason I'm going to suggest for everybody to do this, number one, go on social media and post this stuff. The reason, again, is this is algorithmic. So it works both ways. So if it's questioning the legitimacy of this particular report, that will be impactful on the algorithms too. So don't hide your discontent. And then two, contact the SEC, file a complaint. Listen, the way I look at it, it's one of two things. If what they report in this short report is true, then the SEC should know. And I'm sure the individuals that are cited in there would agree. I'm sure Ace, we just got off a call. Ace, a sweet guy, I'm sure it's so ridiculous, the accusation. But those people need to be, cleansed. And it's really improper that they're referenced. The reason why we're doing it, and I mentioned this to JR before we started. So I went through the report, and in the report, page 8, it has basically a table of all the purported promoters, and it lists 3 tiers of promoters. And by the way, I found the report itself pretty amateurish in its style and in its form. And just on this one page, I found a mistake. And that this was like in a 2-second view. So it lists 3 tiers. Tier 1, these are the biggest scumbags. And this is ham. This is what they would say. Ham's on this list. And obviously I'm saying that in jest. Whatever I'm saying about all these people, I think this report's full of shit. But just for the sake of this discussion, I kind of want to tell you why we can talk about it. And I'm sure theoretically, the person that drafted this report will see this video, because if they hadn't watched videos, they wouldn't be identifying these people. So,
bingo.
So to whoever out there who wrote the report, greetings. Hope you enjoy the video. And if you have any additional jokes that I can use, please pass them on. So we have tier number one, like the ham guys. We have tier number two, and the way they characterize tier number two is might just be part of the cult. And then there's a series of people on there, and I don't mean to single anybody out, but I just so we have a differentiation in category. Tier number two would be like Dirty Mayo. Dirty Mayo's mentioned in that one. And again, I'm sure.
Congratulations, Dirty Mayo.
Yeah,
Just congratulations. Give you a shout out.
Yeah, congratulations, Dirty Mayo, for making the list. It's quite an honor. So that's two. Category number three is the lower tier. And unfortunately, they made an error because in category two, the lower tier they mentioned might be part of the cult. They also repeated that here. And here it continues all the way down to, I'll throw another name out there, some guy with initials BB. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 18. So there's 18 different people referenced. We did not make that stupid list.
That's right. And let me inject why I think we didn't make the stupid list, because there's an individual out there that made some, I wouldn't even say disparaging. I wouldn't even say disparaging. I don't think they're disparaging. I'm not really sure what I would call these comments, but Richard, we are not necessarily good lawyers. I mean, so why would they put two clowns like us on that list, right? I think it's interesting that that's how they categorized it. I think, I will tell you in the last 2 years that I've been listening to Ham and listening to William. I've been listening to William for the last year. I have learned a tremendous amount from these guys. Whether you agree with them or not on, what's happening in the market is an entirely different thing. But I will tell you, Ham, in my view, has done a tremendous amount of education for, thousands of people on social media. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why you and I started this, to educate, go back to why we talked about why we wanted to do something like this, to educate the MMTLP community. And now it's obviously grown because you and I both got pulled into the GTII community to educate them on filings. So this notion that not you and I, obviously, because we're not named and whatever, this notion that there's some type of crazy cult out there is absolutely ridiculous. I'm in my home office with my work computers up here. We are not a cult. We are educating people. We are being educated. This notion that we're all some crazy lunatics running around trying to pump stocks is, quite frankly, fucking ridiculous. So they can take that report and wipe their ass with it, because that's about all it's worth.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm addressing that is because somebody who was willing to throw everybody under the bus didn't throw us under the bus. Exactly. So they have, and I appreciate that. So they've made it, and I'm going to use that. So we're going to talk in that somebody has established, the guy who said that everybody else is screwed has said we're credible. And I appreciate that, because he could have easily, he or she or it, or, theoretically it could be a machine. I mean, I don't know if something like this could be AI generated, could be a chat GBT report. I don't know, because we know that the domain is new. We know there were very few short reports. We know, and if you look at the report itself, it looks very unprofessionally done.
Well, the proof is going to be in the pudding, because if another one comes out and we do make the list, we will damn well know exactly what's going on. So people need to be paying attention. We make light of the fact that we didn't make the list, and we really don't give two shits that we're not on it. But if we're on the next one, you'll damn well know that they're watching us and listening to us. And I welcome that. Maybe we should change the scumbag of the week to not regulators, but just a generic scumbag of the week. Perhaps we should write our own scumbag of the week report, Richard.
Well, maybe we can designate Capybara Research as scumbag of the week. Why not? We'll call it early. We'll give them the award. Now, some of the things, by the way, in the report itself. So I was looking at it, and I didn't, obviously I haven't had a chance to study it, but I was looking at the main points. And by the way, what was interesting is just the language is almost juvenile. So
Well, I mean, let's go.
no,
Let's
no,
take. No, no,
no,
you're
no.
right. I agree with you. I agree with you. What I'm
I
getting
wanted,
at
I
is,
wanted to, I actually wanted to point out one thing in particular. So,
go
if
ahead.
somebody's doing a presentation for people before they get into the details, they might do something called like an executive summary that kind of like puts it into like one page. Here's the highlights. So that's what a professional would do. So here they call it a dummy summary, which again, to me, it sounds juvenile. So it sounds like somebody's like 16-year-old sitting in their basement being paid $3 an hour is drafting this. That's what it looks like. So when I saw that, and by the way, I saw that and that caught my attention because the first thing it did is that is not a professional appearance. The fact
Well,
that it's the domain, the fact that domain name is new, the fact they had very few reports, the fact that when I went to the website, it didn't work properly, the fact that it's out, that it appears to be outside the country, the fact that I can't contact anybody, those
right,
things are red flags. And
right,
so and just so the algorithm picks this up. So Capybara Research, their short reports, there are red flags in them, and it causes me concern as to their accuracy. And anybody buying and selling shares of Fingermotion or any other stock based on a short report should be really cautious before acting, because in the past, and maybe this is perfectly accurate, I don't know, but in the past, there have been many short reports that have been proven to be inaccurate. And the problem with the short reports is exactly what we're experiencing now. Once it happens, it has an impact. It immediately impacts the stock price. And then
right.
you have to work to undo the nonsense. So there is a benefit to doing that. Hopefully, there'll be prosecutions. And just again, for the algorithms, if someone is fraudulently submitting short reports, then the Department of Justice should investigate. And if they find the short reports submitted in a very material time, yeah, for example, that's, I guess let me finish that and I'll get back to that. Should be investigated. And material time is, here's the idea, right? This is Fingermotion, right? Nothing, this is not a brand new company. It didn't open its doors today. This wasn't an IPO. If in fact what they claim is true, then they should have brought it to our attention before.
Right.
The only reason they didn't was they could let the price of the stock run up and manipulate it down. And that would be, if that's what occurred, that would be securities fraud.
Well, and here's the even more disconcerting thing is their disclaimer that they're actually short the stock. So
Yeah, almost.
if they've written a false report, that's not good, not good at all. Let me go back. Shit, I forgot what I was going to say, Richard. Damn.
All right, I'll babble some more and then you'll remember. Yeah, so now I'm looking at the report itself. The what thing that's interesting that is not explained on one, and this is probably two things they address. They address income and revenue, and that comes from a prior report somewhere I saw it. So they, in essence, I think probably copied and pasted a prior report and a prior analysis. But the way they get to their conclusion is they presume that the information that they have been provided is wrong. It actually says in the report. So they say that the information must be inaccurate. So they don't have the information to prove it's inaccurate, but if the car wasn't blue but was red, it would be red, in essence, is the argument. So they just make up they make up the facts, and they say because of that, they're going to have a tough time making revenue. Okay, so I guess if you change the facts, you do change the conclusions, and I agree with them. But the analysis is like a 3-year-old child.
Right.
And I was thinking, about that
I just
also.
remembered what I was going to say, Richard. I'm sorry.
Okay, go
So
for it. Go for it.
if we go back and we look at all the hit pieces that you and I have examined, they've always had a level of not very well written. I mean, these are not Pulitzer Prize winning authors writing these reports. And I think there's two things. Number one, they have a specific reason to do it, and that's to panic people. And number two, let's face it, these guys just don't write very well. We're not talking Harvard educated people here. We're talking on some level people that, I mean, probably don't even have a very wide vocabulary. So this notion that they title the executive summary dummy summary doesn't surprise me. I mean, they probably couldn't find another word to use in the English language. These are not bright people. They get paid to write shitty articles, and that's what they do. In most of them probably wouldn't even survive in real world corporate America. I mean, let's be honest. So yeah, I'm not surprised that it's written, like a third grader wrote it, because that's probably the education level they have.
And I was thinking about this, how I look at it, and when I first looked at it, how I look at it, I look at everything as if I was going to court. So here's my expert, right? I put him on the witness stand. I can't get this report in. This will not get into evidence. You cannot establish a foundation for the claims here.
That's
and
right.
It's not even close, right? By the way, this is not even a well-drafted piece of garbage. This is just a piece of garbage. And I'll give you an example of why you couldn't get it in. So I'm just looking at like some of the note that, I don't know what you call them, but let's call it headlines. One of them is, we believe. That's how it is. We believe. We believe in Santa Claus. I mean, I don't know. We believe in what? That's meaningless. That kind of. And then it asserts that certain gimmicks occurred without defining what the gimmicks were. And then what I said before, right, they presume that all the accounts are incorrect.
Right.
And that's how they base it. So one issue they address is the revenue issue, and it's completely made up. They base a lot of this on the fact they allege there's promoters. So they backdoor it. So they say, because there's promoters, all this crap must be untrue. That's in essence what they're saying here. Right. And then they make the allegation against the 18 people. We didn't mention all 18, but the 18 we do. Then the next point that they reference that is nonsensical, really. The argument they make is that Fingermotion doesn't have enough cash. That's the argument. So it's a problem. And that's next to that they're doing a shelf registration.
Right.
So I don't think this person understands that if they sell stock on a shelf registration, they raise capital. So theoretically, if they did a $300 million shelf registration, I think last quarter they had $15 million on hand, something like that. They would now have $315 million on hand. Right. And I think that would be less of a capital problem. Now, this person, whoever, again, I don't know if it's a person. We shouldn't judge it's a person, because it very well could be a computer, could be AI. We don't know, because it's a new site, has very little activity, isn't really crafted like a real writer. So it may be like just a computer. We don't know.
So let's take a couple minutes and kind of get off to the side and use our legal minds. So what kind, because we don't really do that often enough, to be honest with you. So let's take about what an appropriate response to something like this would be. And in my mind, I think it's twofold. Number one, you have the company can respond, obviously, and put something out, within the next 24 to 48 hours. Ham alluded to that on the call. So I would anticipate something coming out to, dispel whatever allegations were made. But the other thing here, and I think this is important, is, Richard, let's pretend for a second that I don't really do any of this, and I'm not on your show, and you were named on the report, and you called me up and you said, hey, Brian, what do you think I should do here? My advice to you would be, I think you should immediately draft a letter basically sending them a cease and desist letter, telling them they need to print a retraction because you're not a paid promoter.
Yeah.
So some of these people that were named and look, Ham came out and said, I'm not paid a dime. I know Busy said the same thing on Ham show or on William's show. He's not paid a dime. Well, if I'm advising someone that is telling me that they were named as a paid promoter in a report that went out to hundreds of thousands of people, I'm concerned about that, and I'm looking to take some type of legal action against the organization.
Yeah. So my course of action would be, so I got it today. My cease and desist letter goes out today. I give them till the end of tomorrow to do a retraction, and the following day I file my action.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
And no fucking around. That's it. And I prosecute it. And it's part of it also. We talk about that you have to kind of go to the wall.
That's right.
Listen, I'm doing it in my MMT LP fidelity arbitration. I'm spending a shitload of time on it.
That's
and
right.
So because it's got to be done. And if we want to stop the practice, then the parties that are undertaking the practice have to spend money and have to feel the pain.
That's
and
right.
The only way that works, and I'm not telling anybody legal advice, so I'm not telling the people that we talked about before what to do, but if I was in their shoes, fuck yeah, I would send a letter today and I'd file a lawsuit. I'd give them 24 hours to resolve it, and I'd file a lawsuit, and I'd make that public. I'd put it on Twitter. I'd make it so anybody knows if they're going to do it in the future, this is the ramification. If they want to do it, so be it, but there's going to be a price to pay.
That's right.
Now,
I'm just going to say, and let's remember, they're not paying lawyers like you and I. I mean, let's be honest. They're paying some high-priced attorneys. These are guys that probably get billed $500 to $700 an hour, and to respond to something like this would probably take them 2-3 hours, and then the continued litigation. So at some point, the pain would hurt for them, and the pain would come in the form of over-exorbitant legal fees for something as stupid as this.
Now there may be the case, I'm just going to tell you a part of the practicality. We don't know where they are. And they may just, right. And it could be just an entity that's going to be defunct tomorrow, and they'll go on. But if that's the case, then so be it. You got to exact the price every time. And again, it's like the naked short, we've been involved in the naked short game now, right? So we know all the securities where it happens, and we've learned all the techniques that are undertaken to interfere. Just like we were saying literally yesterday, what is going to happen that's going to interfere? Literally our discussion, off the record, of course.
It was an off the record discussion.
Yeah, but there's got to be a price to be paid, and everybody involved who's targeted should attack and be super aggressive. And the other thing is, listen, from the stock market community, the people that are investing in Fingermotion, if they see the people that are targeted go after the accusers, they believe those people are innocent. If they don't, whether it's justified or not, they may have some doubts.
Right.
So I think for the benefit of the stock itself, it helps if those targeted who have been wrongly targeted act appropriately, because all those people that are targeted should be super pissed, besides the fact it may damage their reputations. Really, from this point in time, it may hurt them, because now somebody can say that you were referenced in a short report, and it may impeach their credibility, may hurt their earning capacity. Those are all things that listen, I would think about. And if whoever's out there, whether it be a person, computer, a robot, alien, whoever's drafted this particular document, if you come after either of us, we're coming after you. It will be clear.
Absolutely.
You've seen how we've conducted ourselves. We're not going to tolerate it. So if you want to come after us, feel free. We'll come after you.
That's right. I have free legal representation. I'm just telling you right now, I got all the fucking time in the world. And while I have said on multiple occasions, a lawyer that represents themselves as a fool for a client, I've always taken the approach that they have a fool for a client if they're on the offense, not on the defense. And you know, I'm a pretty bright fucking lawyer, so bring it on. That's all I got to say.
And so let's talk about, because I know it was referenced, the disclosure. So the disclosure, which is the middle of the first page, I would say, is it buried? No, I'd say the type is slightly different. And I don't know if that was intentional or just sloppy, honestly. So like, these are things that are occurring to me as I'm looking at it.
Right.
Just in terms of in terms of the professionalism, which makes me question the accuracy. I don't know if it's true or not, but just kind of things. So their disclosure, they indicate that they hold a short position in Finger and believe the stock is headed lower. So they don't even have a conviction in that. They don't even have a conviction in their position. They just know if they throw the crap out and it's labeled a short report, that in and of itself will have the impact they want. It really doesn't matter what the contents are. And they know that. So we've addressed the two, main arguments. One is the revenue, and that's based upon a bunch of assumptions that they don't have facts and don't show facts. Right. Two was the lack of capital that Fingermotion has, but they ignore that the shelf registration will generate more than enough capital than they can use. They also reference in there that, if you look at their business plan, I don't think if they use the words exactly business plan, but if you look at their strategy at first blush, it really looks good. That's their admission. Then they speculate as to what's missing. That's the part where they're guessing as to what would be. So they say it looks good, but if it wasn't as they say, then it wouldn't be good. Okay, wonderful. So those are the two positions, really. The revenue, the capital. There's some other, I think, like side issues that are not, I think, the main target. But to me, it doesn't look like a very sophisticated job. It's certainly not like Hindenburg, because Hindenburg came out with one recently this week that I thought was Hindenburg is a well-known company that does short reports. And Hindenburg, for those of you, it's interesting, when you get older, in your life, you go through certain events and time passes and nobody has any idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, so let's just pause there a second. I got to tell you, any organization that names their company Hindenburg has got to have, what the hell? Yeah. Whose fucking bright idea was that?
I know. Hindenburg, I think it was the early 20th century, like 1915 or something like that, or maybe later. I don't know. It was a German, Zeppelin. I think Led Zeppelin's named after them. The Hindenburg, by the way. Did you know that Led Zeppelin's named after the Hindenburg?
I've heard that, but I don't know if that's
no.
True.
I think it is true. Let's spread the rumor, even if it's not true.
We'll probably get a cease and desist letter from Robert Plant, which would be cool, by the way.
That would be cool. Well, let's see. Led Zeppelin, please respond. Yeah. So anyway, it was this big, like a Goodyear blimp that was flying, I think, over St. Louis. I think it struck a power line. It crashed and burned, and a bunch of people got killed. And so the reference from there was Hindenburg meant like a crash and burn disaster. And so there's a famous short report drafter called the Hindenburg. At least they have good spelling. They use good type. They have good topic sentences. It appears like a human being is drafting it, even if some of their stuff is not accurate either.
Right. So,
but there's
it's Mark like to describe Cher Bell on. I'm not sure if that's your name. We're well aware of the Hindenburg disaster. That's why we're poking a little fun. So, but thank you for that.
Yeah. So, but it's if that's probably the most famous short reporter. These guys, I think this Capybara. I was speculating, and I don't know if this is true either. So, I speculated about a lot of stuff. So, and this is all opinion also. So I know Ham spoke about an Australian billionaire that was on the short side. And when I saw the name capybara research, because I believe a capybara is an animal from that neck of the woods, it made me think, was there any connection between that Australian billionaire? I don't even know his name, by the way. Or I don't even know his name. I don't know if he is a person, but that's what I heard. I don't know if there's any connection between that particular person and this particular report that happens to be of a name that from that region. Maybe just coincidence. No, but it struck me. That's something that occurred to me. And again, if I was in a deposition and I was deposing somebody, I'd ask that kind of question. I would, if I'm deposing capybara research, I'd ask them about who their owners were and when they were founded and who's connected to them. Those are the kind of questions that occur to me. So okay, South America, Australia, whatever. How about if it traveled from South America to Australia? Yeah. How about that? How about that? It jumped all the way from South America to a capybara.
Check Soup space call recording from last night. Better someone take a copy of that recording. Oh, why? Were Richard and I talked about, or do I just call the SEC? What should I say? You can file a complaint with the SEC. Go out to their website. There should be a complaint form out there. And I would encourage any investor right now in Finger to do that. I mean,
and you can also file a on the whistleblower site. You can file a whistleblower.
You pick them up and call them. Look, Ham's community used to call the SEC every day at 12 o'clock for a year and a half. I'm sure Ham can post the SEC's phone number for people to call about this bullshit short report by Capybara.
Yeah, but I literally, what I did is I drafted a complaint letter and I FedExed it to the SEC, and I filed a whistleblower complaint, and I emailed my complaint to the SEC. So, and we don't know if it's going to be acted upon, but the point is it makes noise. And just like everything else, if you make enough noise, then people are more reluctant to act out. So, if Capybara thinks the DOJ is going to come after them, they'll stop. And the only way that the DOJ or the SEC will get involved if enough of people out there make enough noise.
Well, and let's take a step back. Let's just take a step back. And here's why reaching out to the SEC and reach out to these organizations is important, because that's never been part of retail's playbook. And what we've seen with the MMTLP community is the headway they've made. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting to do anything like the MMTLP community has done, because this is an entirely different situation. But contacting the SEC about this particular short report and filing a complaint, you make enough noise, people are going to start listening.
And the premise for filing the complaint is perfectly reasonable, right? Because the short report is either right or wrong. And either way, there's a problem, right? If it's right, there's a problem. If they're wrong, there's a problem. So let the SEC know that there's something wrong going here.
That's right.
Figure it out, because the public's at risk, right? And that's by the way, that's the only way, we can influence, the MMTLP crowd, which we are both of. So we have that experience. That's kind of where we started. They reached out to Congress and Senate and still doing it. All this stuff goes together. It's all part of the big package. Right. It's all part of, unfair trading for retail and just again, the reason why JR and I talked about this for days beforehand is because after you see something happen enough, you get an expectation of a repeat performance.
Right.
I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it's 110% true. We knew the playbook. We you and I talked about this the other night, that we were anticipating something like this, but you just don't know what it is or how it's gonna come about. It's just again, this is the playbook they have. So this is what they utilize. But I think the difference here is they underestimate the level of education that these communities have. They underestimate, people like us out here talking about it, out here, picking this fucking short report apart. I mean, they just, I don't know what else to say. This is why we're doing what we're doing, to educate people, to talk about these things, to ease people's concerns on things like this. Someone just pointed out Cap Barber L Cap. I'm terrible with pronunciations. Capibrera is a rat in South America. Is that true?
So maybe they're a rat, just a rat.
Again, who the hell sits down and thinks of these names?
The other part of what I was thinking about, and it's kind of alluded to, is they don't even mention Univest. So they make it like it's a generic shelf registration.
Sure.
So I would agree. Every time I've seen, other than with Univest, and I've, for what it's worth, I've done my own research on Univest, so I have an opinion about what they will do. And I think what they will do is different than most underwriters, most people in their position. And I think they have a particular business plan that's different than others. So I think it would be relevant. I think it would be relevant in the short report to at least address that. So if the short person can't distinguish between Univest and some other lender, like Citadel, or some other underwriter like Citadel, that's probably not really being precise enough. The other part is it presumes that the shares will be bought at the lowest price. And it makes no sense, because obviously for Fingermotion, it doesn't make a difference, right? They're going to get the money. They're going to get upwards of $300 million, whether the stock price is 4 or 40. But if you look at the historic pattern of Univest, they generally don't, or haven't to this point in time, come in when the stock is at the bottom or at the lower part. The IPOs obviously would be different because those are new issues. But as to the other ones that have run in the limited time, again, that doesn't seem to be their MO. Anything can happen, but without addressing, like saying Univest, despite the fact in the past they've done this, in this case, they're not. Something without addressing it is leaving a gaping hole in their logic, because again, that relates to the share offering itself and the fact that it's dilutive. Of course, it's dilutive, but think about it this way. And again, JR and I have talked about this ad nauseum, the price that they would buy in, and so we have no idea. Honestly, we have no idea. But let's say you're talking. But just thinking about it this way: if Univest, and I don't know what the price would be, I don't know if they're going to buy in, we have no idea. So we're just using this for math purposes. But if Univest was investing $300 million and they sold all shares at $30 a share, that's 10 million shares on a float that we know is at least $24 million. So that's what, 30% of that stated amount, but which increases the stock price 500%. So how is that not good for shareholders no matter what?
Exactly.
So if you had a chance to look at the short report, and I know now some of you may, because you might be interested, kind of evaluate it yourself. Look at questions that you might have. Think about how professional you think the work product is. Think about if you think, and detach yourself, because we're all pissed, but detach yourself and see if the arguments are supported. And in the end, I think you'll conclude that based on the content and based on the timing, this is a transparent attempt at knocking down the share price and appears to be a fraudulent attempt to do so. We don't know for a fact. And again, I'm sure all the parties named would love to be vindicated and would love the SEC to investigate the allegations. And if the allegations are false, they would like the SEC to prosecute.
Yep. Yeah, it's really time the SEC steps up and does something. And this is yet another perfect example for them to move the ball forward and start to correct the markets. You know, all these clowns that are out there bashing. You know, someone just made a reference to, you know, the report and alleging that actually one of the bashers might be behind it. You know, it's just nonsense. So the SEC really needs to step up and do something.
Well, what we do know, and this is a fact because it's stated, we do know that a short position is behind this report. So you can accurately say that because they say it. And I don't think it's in dispute. There's no argument. You don't have to argue with anybody because it's obviously a report done by a short to reduce the stock price.
That's right. And this is a perfect example of where the SEC could pull the blue sheets, follow the sale tickets, and figure out exactly where the report came from.
And they could do it in a timely fashion too.
Right.
If they really wanted to, they could do it tonight.
That's exactly right.
Electronic documents. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we should FOIA the SEC's response in the coming days. See what they're doing.
I've also considered, and I'm saying this when I'm pissed, so I'll let it pass. But I was thinking to myself, so I have an action against Fidelity involving MMTLP, naked shorting MMTLP, and having a share lending program and diluting stock and whatever else applies. There's a lot applies. And then I was thinking, of course, I have Fingermotion shares at Fidelity too, of course. And I know those have to be naked shorted too.
Yeah.
So does Richard Hoffman now file an arbitration action against Fidelity involving Fingermotion? That's a question mark. That's a question mark. And again, would that give me access to discovery and to documents that might be of interest? I don't know.
Right.
It certainly makes Richard Hoffman work more, though.
As if you don't have enough to do already. So,
anything else you want to talk about, or anybody else? If anybody has any questions they want to throw at us, we're happy to answer any that we.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. So, you know, we've been talking about this. You and I have been talking about this for a few days now, and you know, we as early or as you know as close as what 8 o'clock last night, we were on the phone talking about it. Yeah. So it's
all I can say is, you know, be active. You know, be active and aggressive in opposing this type of conduct, and remember that this is a psychological attack. You know, I'm assuming I have my own opinion, so I presume this is bullshit. That's my presumption. And I will not let it impact my decision making. So I'm not telling anybody else to do that, but that's what I'm doing because I'm not going to let them win. And I also expect, by the way, I expect that the company will address these allegations. And again, I assume all the allegations are false. And as such, I would expect the stock price to rebound. That's my personal view. And that's what I'm acting on. Now, I may be 100% wrong. That's possible too. So I throw that out too. As I mentioned on when we're talking on Sunday night, my history in every time I talk about a stock, there's disaster. Don't blame me for this one. All right. But it won't sway me at all other than piss me off. And I bought today. I did buy today. So, and I'll buy more, and I'll let everybody make their own decisions, but it does not impact my decision making or my belief about Fingermotion. It does reconfirm my concern for the financial system and the security system, because permitting this to happen is just nonsense, especially because guys like JR and I were predicting it was going to happen. So if we're predicting it, why isn't the SEC like all over this stuff?
That's right. That's right. And let's get this out of the way so people know this, because I suspect that there are folks watching, and at some point you and I are going to be singled out as well too. I am not a paid promoter for fucking anything. I'm an average American. I live in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I have a house. I have computers sitting right next to me for my full-time job. I don't get fucking paid to do this, and I don't want to get paid to do it.
I would say, listen, if somebody, I'm going to be more honest about it. If somebody came to me, like if Capybara or Capybara or whatever they are, the rat, if they came to me and said, here's 150 million bucks, you can be our shill, I'd certainly consider it, to be honest. I don't know if I'd do it, but I'm sure there's a price I could be bought at. I have to be honest. But at this point in time, we haven't gotten there. Nobody's offering me 150 million bucks. You have my email address, so you can contact me. But
yeah,
it's fucking Looney Tunes. Most of the people I know that are doing YouTube for this crowd are spending. Yeah, are they making money doing it? Yeah, 32 cents an hour, whatever it is. It's ridiculous. JR and I, theoretically, if I build my time, I'm in, 6-figure plus. So I'm not charging anybody. We're making nothing. We're doing it because we think it's the right thing to do. And I believe that everybody else somewhere, they may have like mixed motivations because everybody wants to make money. That's being upfront about it. But everybody here wants to clean up the market. And that's the underlying motivation.
I think I started out wanting to clean up the market, but I'm slowly getting to the point where I think I want to see some people in jail, or see some people with significant lawsuits filed against them. And I don't mean like, $100,000. I mean like, hey, we're coming after some of these bashers, and given the value of shares that you've destroyed, just let alone today, we're going to say the harm is, $20 million. You watch some of these clowns on Twitter, and they're going to be like cockroaches running for cover. So
if you use I think it was like 26 million, DTCC says 26 million shares, something like that. Yeah. We think there might be, let's say there's 200 million shares. So if there's 26 million shares and the stock is down $2 today, that's 50 million bucks. Right. And if there's 200 million shares, then that means $400 million have been lost. That's grand theft, right? That's absolute theft. There's no other way to say that. And if it was outside the securities market, people wouldn't even blink an eye. They'd be in jail.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Not a small amount.
And it goes back to what we've always talked about. You and I are here to help. I first off, this does not pay enough for me to actually do it on any level of a basis. Being a basher doesn't pay. I mean, what do these fucking guys make? 30 cents a fucking word? I don't even know what they make, but I got better things to do with my time. I'd much rather be out planting mums than sitting on Twitter fucking bashing stocks all day. Not my cup of tea. And I find that anyone that actually does do it probably can't get a real fucking job anywhere else. So,
between he and I, and I'm speaking to myself, but I think it's the same as JR. So we got involved because we were in MMTLP, and, the stories were heartbreaking. Besides, our own positions, because we're both shareholders. But for both of us, it wasn't us. It was the community that got involved. And I'm sure a lot of you people out there have the same feeling. Once you get involved and you're on the train, you can't get off. You're just not going to take it. You're not going to take the abuse. You're going to fight, keep on. And I'm speaking for myself. So, other people might have belief, but once I got started, and I don't do that for everything. Not everything moves me like that. But once you see it and you see it's obvious and you see it's in your face, it's
That's right.
disrespectful. It's disrespectful to yourself not to continue the fight. That's my view.
So, John Crossan, yeah, sorry, we're a little passionate today. So, I'll share a little bit about my story. I went to law school under the premise that I wanted to help people, and I always saw myself in public service. But as a young man with a potential family in front of them, I realized that public service does not pay the bills. And I didn't want to live the kind of life that my parents lived. Both of my parents were blue collar. So I found a good paying job and I worked in an area. And I like to think that I became somewhat of an expert in that area. I've often said to you guys, and Richard, you know this because I've bored you with it. I can bore the hell out of you on ERISA. It's not fun stuff. And, I got myself on Reddit and then lo and behold, found myself in the MMTLP community. And I didn't start out helping the MMTLP community from a legal aspect. Somehow, I got a reputation out there and people started calling me to share their stories with them. And I wish I could remember the gentleman's name. I'm certain I have his phone number saved because he had me on the phone for almost 2 hours sitting in Lowe's parking lot. He had DM'd me and he said, "Can I call you? I need to talk to someone." And I said, "Sure." And I gave him my cell phone number, thinking it was going to be a 5-minute conversation that I could end it before I needed to go into Lowe's. For 2 hours, I sat in Lowe's parking lot. And that was one of the most heartbreaking conversations I've had with anyone in this community. And somehow I found myself becoming counselor in chief from a psychological aspect, not from a legal aspect. I'm here for the people. I'm here to educate. Sometimes we say a lot of goofy things, but at the end of the day, that's what both Richard and I are here to do. We're not paid promoters. We're not here to pump anything. Yes, we're both shareholders in both Finger MMTLP or all Finger MMTLP and GTII. But I got to tell you, this is not making or breaking my life. I'm in these places because I think there's something here. But I will tell you that at the end of the day, I'm here to help people. I'm here to educate people. I'm here to be a voice of reason, and I'm here to be an ear. So you fucking people think you're going to come after me? Go for it.
Yeah. So for me, and I've mentioned the story before. So my parents were Holocaust survivors. So they spent their teenage years in Auschwitz. So a difficult upbringing for them. And so my life could not be anything more than, I could never compare whatever my trials and tribulations were. I could never compare. I was born first generation in the United States, barely. And I always identified, I didn't try to, but it just ended up, I always identified with like the mom and pop because my father had a mom and pop like liquor store, grocery market. So for me, I always identified it. So as opposed to big corporations, in my practice, I've always focused on the small guy, the person who's been downtrodden, not because I'm like I have some great morals and I'm seeking it out. That's the way it worked out. So my last involvement was with in the foreclosure crisis. I represented a lot of homeowners and try to keep them from losing their homes, and had a reasonable level of success because real estate litigation is my my forte. So but I don't like authority. I don't like authority, and I don't like little guys getting screwed. But there's not a lot of things that get your attention. But for some reason, when we got involved in MMTLP and you heard these poor people that had lost all their money, that had suffered, some people had died, some people had gotten divorced. There was such stress caused that it sickened me, literally. And it got me in a position where, hey, I'm on board and we're on board and we're not going anywhere, and we have nothing to hide. We have nothing. Right. We're nothing. And the reason why we have nothing to hide is because good old capybara research determined that JR and I have nothing to hide. And again, thank them for making that conclusion. That might be the only conclusion in an entire rag that's accurate.
Right.
But we don't know.
That's right. And just to go back to something you said, we're on the train. We're not getting off. There's no stop that I'm getting off on. Just that simple. I'm going to be a part of these communities. I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to do every day. You know, we're working in the background on MMTLP, but now we're working in the background on this. You and I've been working in the background on GTII, explaining legal filings. In fact, we just talked about one today. We're here. We're going to educate people. At the end of the day, we're not going anywhere. So I'm going to say it again. Let them fucking come after me. Let them put my name on that fucking list. I don't give two shits.
Yeah, and again, this is a psychological game, and
right.
It's designed really it's designed to create doubt. That's the only thing it's designed to get you to sell your shares. I'm not saying, by the what's the right or wrong decision. I'm saying this document is designed to get you to sell your shares.
Yeah,
and to reduce the stock price.
Yeah, and let's be honest, these organizations add no value to society. They don't. They're nothing more than a way to steal money, a way to destroy small companies. I mean, Ham talks about it all the time. These pharmaceutical companies that are in business, they're cash strapped. They need cash all the time to get through trials, to get through tests, to pay doctors, and God knows what all they do and what all they need. These organizations mean to kill them. They mean to kill innovation. They mean to kill the American spirit so that they can fucking line their pockets and sit on their 10 yachts. Well, you know what? The ship is fucking sinking. It's coming. This can't continue, and it can't continue because people like Richard and I, people like all of you out here that are commenting, are pissed off, and we're sick of it. We're sick of our regulators not doing their jobs. We're sick of our politicians not following up with our regulators to do their jobs. The ship is sinking, and the winds of change are coming. Don't know when it's going to happen. Don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. So don't sit back and don't take it. Take action. That's it. Just take action. If you think this is wrong, then take action. And the action I will take today, and again, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, but I'll definitely reach out to Counsel for Fidelity, and I'm going to make a complaint about their shorting Fingermotion. Just going to start it off. I'll just start the ball rolling, and I will see what the response is. But everybody should put the pressure back on. What the short reports are designed is to push us away from the security and push us away from the people that provide information. So don't let them manipulate that. Don't let them manipulate you like they're manipulating the stock. So I don't have much else to say other than JR.
John, I do apologize. I know my language is a bit heated today. I will tell you that while I appreciate the comment that you say that I'm better than that, 99% of the time I try to remain professional on spaces. But today got to me. It really did. And Richard and I have been talking about it all day. But today got to me, and it didn't get to me because it was unexpected. It got to me about kind of how it happened and the impact that it's having on people. Because look, we're on Twitter all day. We're seeing the posts. I'm reading these comments coming in. Someone just indicated they lost $28,000 worth of value today. I feel that. And my passion sometimes comes out in, foul language. So, John, while I can appreciate what you're saying, I sincerely apologize. But at the end of the day, I'm hot right now.
Yeah, I guess that I was going to say it. So I guess the interpretation is we generally don't swear. We don't.
No, we generally.
But I guess the interpretation is this is a circumstance that justifies it.
Right.
And
we also generally don't come on at 2:45 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, right. And being from MMTLP, this certainly sounds like another extraordinary circumstance that justifies language and intention. And again, my view is don't let them impact you. Take action. Be aggressive.
Right.
Take control. Don't let them have control, because as long as we push back, we will get back to where we were before. That's the point. Just like they were talking about the call, and I don't know, precisely. So I'm not a stock guru, but the point is they get you back to a certain point, but that is a dynamic position. And once you resolve that issue, then you should go back to where you were before. So it's a matter, and that's their tactic, right? They want to push you back and get you out. So not going to let us. Hopefully you'll make your own decision. Hopefully we've kind of provided you with kind of our view on this. Feel free to reach out to us if people have questions, comments. we'll post the video up and you'll have a chance to comment again. So comment, ask us questions, and we'll try to answer them. We obviously kind of went on fast, and we've had very little time to consider this. So this is off the top of our heads. So
I haven't even read it.
yeah, and I spent like 3 minutes looking at it, finding the points that were highlighted by them. That's what I focused on, what they thought was important. But I'm sure as time goes on, other people will pick it apart. And by the way, I expect the company will release, it's just typically what will happen, is the company will release a report addressing the points raised in the short report. And that's how usually it's responded to. So what I would expect now, and I don't know what the time difference is. So Fingermotion, I know has an office in New York, but it's based in Singapore. And so Singapore, I don't know when they would have received this. It might have been in the middle of the night. So they may not get to it till tomorrow. But I would bet, although I don't know for certain, that their legal department will prepare a response, and either tomorrow or the next day they'll publish it, and we will see like a point by point takedown, because that's typically what it goes on. And what happens as a result is, so you get a swing, like I told you, there's an algorithmic swing. Then they'll publish their report, and you'll get an algorithmic swing back the other way. At least that's what I've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just because someone, and we've learned this by now, just because someone publishes something does not mean it has any truth to it.
Right.
It may, but doesn't, just because it's published doesn't have any truth. Anyway, right. JR, anything else to add to this?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, and obviously we'll be monitoring the channels, and if we find out something that needs to be discussed in an urgent manner, we will come back. Otherwise, we'll post as we normally do, and we support everybody else that's mentioned. All the people that are mentioned, we support them. I feel sorry for all those people. Really, who wants to be targeted? I mean, I wouldn't mind being targeted. It would give me a little energy, and I'd go, just like we're having this discussion, very heated. If someone had targeted me, I would be more heated, and it would energize me. But for most people, they don't like to be. And it's not a fun position to be. And like I said, it might impact their reputation, might cost them money. It's cost all of us money, right? Mm-hmm. Today. So anyway, for all those people targeted, you have my assistance if you want to talk, and both of us will certainly offer whatever advice we can have. I've been involved. I did a trial of a defamation case, a jury trial on somehow. So I have some experience in that area, but I'm not an expert in libel, slander, whatever. But we're happy to offer our opinion, thoughts, and whatever. And again, we'll come back if we ever have any additional information. We'll come on back. And to everybody else out there, stay strong, be well. Again, any questions you have, feel free to send it off to us. And remember, the short report has deemed us credible. Remember that. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Be well.
Take care, everyone.